Okay, guys, welcome to a SportsMatters TV special in association with 𝗀𝗡𝗧𝗏, the podcast. And the lady we are speaking to could be TNA Knockout Women's Champion this weekend. No stranger to championship success, being a former NXT champion and tag champ as well. Indy, first of all, greetings from Ireland. How are you heading into Bound for Glory this weekend?
I'm excited. I'm emotional, but I need to say, you said I could be the Knockouts World Champion, but I think you meant to say I will be the Knockouts World Champion. But yeah, at Bound for Glory, it's going to be a huge show. I think it'll be our biggest show of the year. It's going to blow Slammiversary out of the park. Slammiversary, we had a really high attendance, 7,623. I believe Bound for Glory is on track to beat that. Hopefully, we'll get the biggest attendance in North America. So I'm excited. My parents are going to be there to watch me become Knockouts World Champion. It's a very important match to me, as I've made people aware of this, that I grew up a huge TNA fan. I've really put over the fact that it's a dream of mine to become Knockouts World Champion. So I'm ready.
And listen, you've made such an impact since crossing over to TNA. It's been probably, you're definitely the fastest rising star on that roster. We look at when you signed only a couple of months ago, but look what you've done already. You've gone from strength to strength. Ratings have gone up. You're always trending on Twitter. What an impact you've made already.
Wow, I didn't know all that, so thank you. That really like boosts my ego, and that's something that I need going into the match. I need all the confidence. But it feels good because I'm not really used to being the girl or the knockout. So getting to be the face of it, it's a nice feeling, kind of feeling valued. And when I become Knockouts champion, that will kind of solidify my place at the top of the division. Even though you're saying I'm the fastest rising and all that, I still don't have that title. So I think once I have that title, that kind of solidifies everything.
Definitely. Now, speaking of yourself, it's been, look, a fantastic couple of years. We've seen you all across the world wrestling, day to day. What a journey it's been. Let's talk about the early days. How did it start for you firstly? Obviously, look, you mentioned being a TNA fan, but how did it start and where did that courage come from to say, look, I want to do this?
So I first discovered wrestling when I think I was maybe like 7 or 8 years old. I don't remember what segment it was. I think it was Monday Night Raw. And I remember just thinking, like, what is this? Like, this is like a crazy thing that I'm witnessing. And I always think of that now. If someone's just flicking through the channels and they put wrestling on, like, if they've never seen it before, what do they think? And I remember at the time, I just thought, like, what is this? But I immediately became like so enthralled with it. And I became obsessed. And when I was a kid, I never thought that you could become a wrestler. It was kind of just like a dream, but all kids have dreams. They want to become an astronaut. They want to become this and that. It wasn't until the NXT Takeover match in 2015 between Bayley and Sasha Banks. I talk about this all the time, that this was the match that I watched where I was like, oh my God, like I think I can do that. Like I want to do what they're doing. And I was watching it, I think maybe on this laptop that I'm on right now, or an old laptop. I remember I opened another tab and I signed up for wrestling school after watching that match. So it was those girls that like gave me the courage to take the leap to become a wrestler. And here I am 10 years later.
And there's no looking back. And look, what a journey it's been. We talk about the early days, okay? Obviously, the independent scene is very important, and we're blessed. Obviously, when you're with TNA, you get to do a bit more, okay? You can go back to the indie scene. There's a bit more freedom to roam around, but what did the indie scene mean to you? Obviously, look, you're doing stuff behind the scenes before you break onto, I suppose, the NXT screens. But let's talk about I suppose, the first days and the first few matches. Obviously, the bumps are hard. It's a tough, grueling schedule, but look, you made it look easy.
Yeah, you're referring to like the early days of my indies. Yeah,
Yeah.
so I don't know, it was just like all so new to me, and the indies back then is very different to the indies now, because back then I wasn't on the indies to make a living. Now it is how I make my living. Obviously before I was just trying to get a chance, wrestling for free, wrestling for a hot dog and a handshake, putting myself out there, flying myself to America to get that exposure and that experience because I knew that staying in the one place in Australia wasn't really going to get eyes on me unless something miraculous happened.
Mm.
So it from the moment I started wrestling, my goal was to make it in America, and I did everything I could. I would work 8 days a week to save up money to travel to America, and just get in front of all the eyes that I could. And eventually it paid off. But then now my time on the indies, it's different. Now I have more of a name than I did before. Sometimes I'm in a position where I'm the more experienced one, so I kind of have to take that role, which is something that's new to me. I'm not used to being the one to lead, but I'm having a good time doing it.
Definitely. Now, speaking of your opponent this weekend, Kelani Jordan, look, she's a fast riser like yourself, but listen, it's a very interesting match. You know, we spoke about this on the podcast on Monday. All of us, we shouldn't really say this out loud, but we're all going to say you're going to come through this match and you're going to be the next champion, okay? I just have to be cautious at the start with the intro, but we think you're going to come through this match. But she is a worthy opponent, and look, she's a good champion.
Yeah, I think she's a good champion. I mean, she hasn't really done much with it, but I will say she's a very lovely girl. She's very respectful. We had some experience together in NXT. I think I was kind of like on my way out of NXT when she was first starting, but at her first NXT live event, I tagged with her. So I kind of did have that like veteran role and took her under my wing. Um, and even though wrestling wasn't her dream growing up, I feel like she was born to do this because you watch her in the ring and you're like, damn, she is really good. It kind of pisses me off how good she is. I'm like, damn, I try so hard for this and you're so good. But yeah, I'm looking forward to wrestling her and taking the title home.
Definitely. And speaking of Bound for Glory itself, listen, October 12th, the world will be watching, but what a card. What a card. So many big matches. You know, have you got an eye? I know you're going to be a busy girl that night. Obviously, look, it's a big night for you, but will you keep an eye on other matches? Obviously, look, we mentioned the Dudley Boys versus the Hardys. That is something, I suppose, being a fan yourself, you definitely appreciate that match.
I think in this moment now it just sunk in that I'm gonna be on the same card as the Hardys versus the Dudleys. That's kind of crazy. But I'm also looking forward to the System and Order 4 Hardcore War. I think that's going to be very interesting.
It is indeed. And look, being an Aussie, we mentioned the indie scene. Obviously, Australia is an incredible place. Okay, we do see the scene kind of build out there, but can you see bigger things happening out in Oz in due course? And look, we'll see a lot more breakthroughs.
Yeah, definitely. I want to mention that I'm currently a champion in Australia at a company called Renegades of Wrestling, and I'm going to be back there next month on November 9th. But right now, WWE is in Perth, Australia, and there is a bunch of the Aussie independent wrestlers who've all flown themselves to Perth. They've all gathered together. They're doing like a 3-day training camp. So the wrestlers in Australia are so passionate and so hungry. I think they're just needing a chance or a big break, which we were all waiting for that big break. It's really hard being a country on the other side of the world to America, an isolated island, an isolated continent. But yeah, the passion is just like it's so much, and I hope one day everyone gets to work in front of a bigger audience.
Well, I think it's happening. I think we're seeing that takeover. We're very limited with Irish wrestlers, but I think the Irish and Australian takeover is coming. And yet again, look, why not get TNA out to Australia? I don't see why that can't happen in due course. It could be a more frequent thing, and I'm sure you'd be happy with that.
Oh, that would be a dream come true.
It would indeed. Now, listen, we talk yet again, Bound for Glory. Why? And should people, we got a beautiful thing called TNA Plus here in Ireland, okay? Why should people tune in to TNA Plus and get it?
people should tune into TNA Plus if they can't make it to Lowell, Massachusetts, because this is going to be the biggest show that TNA is going to put out. We had our huge show Slammiversary earlier in the year, which was our biggest attendance in North America. This one is going to be bigger than that. Like you mentioned, we have the Hardys versus the Dudleys. We have the Hardcore War. We have indie wrestling on there. It is a huge show. Everyone is working really hard to make this the biggest event that it can be. So make sure you watch it on TNA Plus. I know you're going to be watching it on TNA Plus.
Always, always. I love TNA Plus. Hooked. Can't get enough of all the old footage too. It's awesome. Let's talk invasion right now. We're going to have to mention TNA NXT because obviously NXT is so close to you as well. You've been there and you've done it at NXT. What's your thoughts on the invasion? Obviously, it's very appealing for the fans. You know, we get to see something different. But listen, what a time to be alive to see this invasion happen.
Yeah, it's crazy. It is appealing for the fans, but also it's great for the TNA roster and the NXT roster to get to work with wrestlers from another company and getting to be in front of more eyes. So, yeah, I'm happy for everyone that's gotten the chance to do that. For the TNA wrestlers to work under Shawn Michaels and see how NXT works because NXT works differently to TNA. So it's positives all over, I think.
Definitely. And look, that TNA locker room, obviously, look, it must be a great place to be part of. You look at all them incredible wrestlers right now in that TNA locker room. But how do you find the locker room? Obviously, look, there's great vibes and it's a great place to be.
It's the best, honestly. It's one of my favorite things about being part of TNA is like the locker room and the whole crew. We're a smaller company, we're a smaller crew, so everyone works twice as hard to make things come together, but then like the morale is really high. So yeah, that's something that I always look forward to going to the TNA loops because of the people, honestly.
Definitely. And look, yet again, you've had some incredible matches these last couple of years. Is there any match that you've not had yet that you would like to have? Look, we can mention a list and list of names, but listen, if you could name two or three people you'd like to wrestle in due course, who would that be?
Ooh, I'm gonna mention someone who's getting inducted into the Hall of Fame this weekend, Mickie James. She's
Hmm.
someone that I grew up watching, and I never thought that I'd have the opportunity to wrestle her. I don't know if I'll ever have the opportunity to wrestle her, but I think that would be something that's cool because although she's a WWE legend, she's also a TNA legend, and I'm on my way to becoming a TNA legend.
You are. And look, yet again, I think you're very observant when it comes to, I suppose, the independent scene. And look, we mentioned Australia. It's on the up, you know, we're seeing so many great wrestlers there. Is there anyone that we should keep an eye on moving forward? Look, there's so many great talent out there, but is there anyone in particular you'd like to see come over to TNA and look, you can show them how it's done?
There's a lot of great talent, and honestly, I could list off like 100 people. But the girl that I'm tagging with next month in Australia, her name is Aisha. She's come over to the US a few times to train and to work the indies here. So she's putting in the work. She's been at it for a while. I'd love to see her get an opportunity to work in front of more eyes. I know she wants it because she's one of the few that will invest in herself and fly herself over to another country to get that exposure and experience. So Asia, definitely, and there's so many. So if I could put a message out there, I would say support the Australian wrestling scene. Like follow the wrestlers there, follow their journeys because everyone is putting in the effort.
Epic. Andy, listen, we're looking forward to Bound for Glory this weekend. I'm sure you will be the champ this weekend. But listen, we'll catch up soon. Greetings from Ireland, and hopefully we get that TNA European tour in due course.
Oh yeah, thank you.
Thanks, champ.